Welcome back to Dan Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Tai Chi Zero, released in 2012. The movie takes place during the mid-Qing dynasty, a time when China's fortune is said to have begun to wane. We see two Chinese armies preparing for battle on an open field. They charge at each other, and a bloodbath ensues. The Divine Truth soldiers sweep through the west and kill many of their warriors. A freak called Liu Chan would become a kung fu master among the warriors. Liu Chan charges the enemy soldiers and quickly takes them out with impressive skills and speed. Liu Chan has unique abilities, which his commanding officer summons, and we are taken back to his past. 18 years ago, Liu Chan was born with a horn on the left side of his head. This is why many people called him the Freak. His mother tried to conceal his horn and gave him all her love. Liu Chan's father was a businessman, but he abandoned his family, and Liu Chan's mother was left to care for him by herself. Liu Chan developed an interest in martial arts from a very young age and discovered his abilities while encountering some bullies during a kung fu display. Liu Chan's abilities are activated whenever someone hits his horn, but this is proven harmful to his health. His eyes turn entirely white, and he attacks based on instinct with superhuman strength. Because his powers take up a lot of energy, Liu Chan is constantly hungry. During the display, Liu Chan easily beats up his bullies and impresses Zhao, the kung fu master. Meanwhile, Liu Chan's mother was caught stealing by Liu Chan's father as she did not have enough money to look after her son, and his men brutally beat her. Zhao believes Liu Chan has great potential and will become a great kung fu master one day because of his horn. Zhao asks Liu Chan's mother to allow him to raise her son since she can't look after him on her own. She accepts and passes away, believing her son will be great in the future. Zhao raises and trains him as promised, and 10 years later, Zhao, now a general of the Divine Truth cult, recruits Liu Chan as a member of the rebel force against the emperor. Back in the present, a fellow warrior, Brother Nan, hits his horn to activate his powers, causing him to wipe out the soldiers from the west quickly. Soon after, Liu Chan is taken back to their camp for treatment after he blacks out from using his powers. Master Dong, the cult's doctor, tells him he won't stop Liu Chan if he intends to kill himself, but if Liu Chan wants to live, he has to give up kung fu and keep his horns away from people, adding to him that Zhao is only interested in winning battles and doesn't care about Liu Chan or anyone else's lives. Then, when Liu Chan's horn suddenly changes from red to purple, the cult doctor warns him that he will die if the horn changes to black. Master Dong instead advises him to practice internal kung fu and tells him to travel to Chen village if he wants to learn it. Zhao confronts Master Dong about telling Liu Chan to stop fighting for him, and the two men engage in a kung fu fight that Master Dong wins. Imperial troops attack them at night and burn down their camp. Liu Chan is forced to take Master Dong's advice to travel to Chen village as Master Dong dies from his wounds. Liu Chan arrives at the village and meets Yu Niang, a village girl engaged to Fang, the chief engineer of a railway corporation planning to build a railway in the city. That night, she addresses the villagers and invites her fiancé to present a demonstration. The demonstration goes wrong, and everyone in the village is worried about the railway's threat to their town and their ancestral temple. The following day, Liu Chan visits Yu Niang and asks her to teach him Chen-style kung fu, but she tells him that that style is forbidden to outsiders. Liu Chan insists and asks her to arrange a meeting with Master Chen, the village grandmaster. She tricks him into climbing up a tall mountain to meet Master Chen, but Liu Chan is furious and disappointed to find only nuns there. He confronts her and engages in a kung fu fight, which she wins using Chen-style kung fu, and Liu Chan is injured. While receiving treatment, Liu Chan is fascinated by Yu Niang's techniques. He is now even more curious to learn the Chen style of kung fu. He asks the doctor to teach him, but he too refuses. Fang is worried about the railway plans, as he had promised the governor that he would begin the construction within 10 days. But with the villagers still skeptical of his plans, he will not be able to start work in time. Yu Niang tells him that his plans would be easy to execute if she married him, but this only angers him. He is angry that the villagers have yet to accept him. Even though he grew up in Chen village, he was never considered a native, and despite studying abroad to impress them, he has never gotten their respect. He is also envious that Yu Niang is a master of the Chen-style kung fu, but he was not taught due to his classification as an outsider. The following day, Lu Chen confronts Yu Niang again, but this time she beats him and throws him out of the village, threatening him to never return again as the gates are shut. Meanwhile, Fang reports back to the governor about his difficulty convincing the people of Chen village to allow passage for the railway. The governor is disappointed in him. Fang learns that a consultant has been sent from the company to monitor the construction of the railway. Claire arrives on the orders of Prince Chun to assist Fang with the railway, who is now convinced they have to rely on the power of technology since negotiations with the villagers have failed. Meanwhile, Lu Chen, who has nowhere to go, remains outside the village gates. He remembers his promise to make his mother proud and determines to return to Chen village. He uses a disguise to enter the town through the front gates, but is spotted and kicked out by the village gatekeeper. The next day, he tries to sneak into the village through the market, but he is caught again and kicked out by a little girl also using the Chen-style kung fu. Over the years, several people have come to the village to learn their style of kung fu, but they all either left on their own accord or were thrown out in the same way as Lu Chen. All this time, Master Chen has been observing Lu Chen and his determination to return to the village. Lu Chen plans to enter the town through the archway on the third day, but he is again kicked out. Soon after, a village laborer approaches him about his determination to return to the village despite being beaten up so many times. Lu Chen shares his enthusiasm for Chen-style kung fu, and the village laborer tells him how he can return to the village. Lu Chen will have to defeat one of the Chen-style Tai Chi masters at the town center. Yu Niang is surprised to see him back in the village. Lu Chen is beaten up again, but the village laborer tells him to study his opponent's moves and use them against him. When Lu Chen eventually wins the duel, he is thrilled with his victory, but then blacks out again from exhaustion. Suddenly, a large machine attacks the village, operated and controlled by Claire. On the governor's orders, Fang gives the town 7 days to surrender and submit to the construction of the railway, or else they will build it by force, destroying the village in the process. Yu Niang tells Fang to leave the village alone, but he refuses, promising to return in 7 days. The town relies on the Grandmaster to protect the village, but he is nowhere to be found. An angry Yu Niang decides to step up in place of the Grandmaster. Meanwhile, the construction of the railway begins outside the village walls. Fang tells Claire that he doesn't want to destroy the village, rather he wants to contribute and help the villagers against poverty and ignorance. Claire disagrees with his motives as she is jealous of Fang's love for Yu Niang. Meanwhile, the village laborer warns Lu Chen that he is dying as his horn has now turned black. Lu Chen becomes worried about his fate, but the doctor tells him that if he can defeat the machine, it'll be easy to learn Chen-style kung fu before it is destroyed. Lu Chen is determined to save the village and Chen fighting style and shares a plan to disguise himself as one of the invading soldiers and break into the machine and destroy it from the inside, making him a hero. That night, Fang learns that Claire intends to leave the railway project to him because she loves him. As Yu Niang secretly watches, Fang confesses that he has been in love with Claire for a long time too, and they share a kiss. A heartbroken Yu Niang interrupts their moment and steals the plan for the railway construction, but Fang doesn't notice. The next day, Yu Niang takes the plans to the village translator to discover what they mean. In the meantime, Lu Chen shares his drawing of the Iron Master Machine with the village laborer, who draws out a plan for Lu Chen to break into the machine and take it down. That night, Lu Chen executes the plan with Yu Niang, but the gears to shut the engine down don't jam as planned, and the foreign soldiers attack. Lu Chen easily defeats them, and they continue to tear the machine apart. While they are busy tearing down the Iron Master Machine, Claire is set to leave. Fang promises to come for her after the railroad construction is finished, to which Claire replies he will join her if he genuinely cares about her. Suddenly, Fang is alerted of Lu Chan and Yu Niang's activities. Fang tells Yu Niang that they will become sworn enemies if she destroys the machine, and she accepts. She jams the gear and the engine starts to crumble before finally exploding. Claire is badly wounded in the explosion and tells Fang they can return to London together now that the machine has been destroyed. Fang accepts, but she succumbs to her wounds and dies right there, and Fang vows to destroy Chen Village to get revenge for his beloved. Yu Niang returns to the village and tells everyone that Lu Chen helped her destroy the machine. However, Lu Chen is only interested in learning Kung Fu and wants to meet with Master Chen. That's when the village laborer arrives, and it is revealed that he was Master Chen all along. Master Chen tells them that the village is still in danger because the explosion killed Claire, and Fang is out for bloody revenge. Master Chen tells Lu Chen that his injuries are severe and cannot fight, so he prepares a plan to conquer the foreign troops without hurting anyone, and when the foreign forces arrive, the Grand Master's plans are executed. Fang arrives and orders that Lu Chen, Yu Niang, and Master Chen surrender, but they refuse. Lu Chen is then wounded in an attempt to save Yi Niang, so Master Chen takes on the rest of the troops alone. After the troops are defeated and Fang surrenders, Lu Chen blacks out again and is brought before the village chief. The village chief is surprised that Lu Chen has somehow managed to master their Chen-style Tai Chi Kung Fu, but calls him a thief. Yu Niang defends him since he risked his life to save the village, and Master Chen discovers Lu Chen's horn and warns he must be saved as it has already turned black. Still, according to their laws, Lu Chen must be punished for the theft. Yu Niang then suggests that she marry him so he can become a citizen of Chen Village, sparing his life and allowing him to learn Chen-style Kung Fu. Meanwhile, the governor is furious with Fang for not completing the railroad project. On Lu Chen's wedding day, Fang returns to Chen Village to exact his revenge while the London armies prepare to invade and destroy Kung Fu. That was all from the video. Subscribe for more content like this and leave a like to help the channel out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Take care!